Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be talking about ReZero, Starting Life in Another World. Yes, that ReZero, the one with the never-ending waifu wars, the isekai that was around before the term that was even being used, the anime that captured so many people's hearts through its cute, charming characters and unique storyline. While I'm not the biggest fan of the show, I have to admit that it has its moments, especially surrounding one character. And that character might not be who you would expect. I'm not talking about Rem, or Amelia, or even Mr. Subaru Natsuki, the great protagonist himself. No, I'm talking about Beatrice, the keeper of the Forbidden Library. Beatrice is consistently characterized as a relatable character, while maintaining the uniqueness that the show's setting gives her, thus making her the most well-developed character in the entire show. Now, for those of you who aren't as familiar with the series as the rest of us, I'm going to provide some context for who Beatrice is now. Beatrice is an artificial spirit created by the Witch of Greed, Echidna, for reasons unknown. She spent most of her youth with her creator and a couple of her followers. While these followers are quite important to the main story of ReZero, they actually aren't important at all in terms of Beatrice's character arc. What is really important here is Beatrice's relationship with Echidna. During Season 2 of the show, Subaru begins to uncover some things about Beatrice's past, and why she is the librarian in charge of the Forbidden Library. We learn that due to Beatrice's nature as a contract spirit, she has never really decided anything for herself, only following the instructions of her creator, Echidna.
これまでの日々にベティの決めたことなんて何があったの？この屋敷でお母様の言いつけを守り続けてずっと一人。
We further learn that Echidna's last instruction to Beatrice before sacrificing herself was to task her with protecting the Forbidden Library until that person came. However, in a cruel twist, Echidna herself didn't know who that person was, meaning that that person would have to be decided by Beatrice herself.
なんだろうね。
お前もベアトリスの待ち人が誰なのか知らないっていうのか。
Echidna also leaves Beatrice with one of two complete copies of the Book of Wisdom, a black book that allows the user to see their future. However, the one given to Beatrice turns blank shortly after she receives it, leaving Beatrice in the dark with only Echidna's last instruction to follow.
愛を示さなくなってもう何年も。
As a side note, the mechanics beyond the Books of Wisdom are very complicated and are only revealed in greater detail in the light novels that chronicle events beyond the anime. Beatrice's Book of Wisdom is far more important as a symbolic tool than it is as an actual one. So, Beatrice is left to her own devices for 400 years, waiting in the Forbidden Library for that person to come.
それが私からの最後の願いだ。
She denies hopefuls that want her to contract with them for her power, all the while losing faith that that person would ever come. Eventually, they stop coming, and so she waits, stewing in her own loneliness, aimlessness, and boredom, growing more and more hopeless and depressed by the year.
やっとわかった。その人が訪れることなんて永遠にありえない。ずっと前からわかっていた。
Although her hope continues to fade, deep down inside she never gives up, sitting directly in front of the door as if waiting for new visitors. Until, eventually, someone new does come.
異物は唐突に無遠慮に土足で上がり込んできた。何の因果か屋敷に残り。
On that note, I'm now going to take a tangent to talk about Beatrice's verbal tick, I suppose.
かしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしらかしら
Beatrice's excessive use of the word kashira, roughly translated as I suppose in English, is a defining characteristic trait that helps the audience identify her. According to that Japanese man Yuta, the word itself is a sentence-ending particle that is often used to express hesitancy, thus its translation as I suppose. Within the story of ReZero, Beatrice's use of this word should be clear. It expresses and shows her hesitancy and inability to decide anything for herself now that her main source of guidance is gone. Unfortunately, since she continues to use the word after making the decision to leave the library and her promise to echidna behind, this wasn't the main goal the author had in mind in making her use the word. Even though there are other valid reasons to have Beatrice use Kashira, the author of ReZero missed a chance for character development by having her continue to use the word. Furthermore, Beatrice's verbal tic has some similarities to real-life speech impediments, in the sense that they can often convey self-doubt or hesitation. Frequent stuttering can be indicative of emotional stress, brain trauma, or genetic abnormalities, two of which may apply in Beatrice's case. Beatrice's use of Kashira thus makes her relatable, while still being a very unique phrase to use, and so we can begin to see the genius of her character. Okay, now that is out of the way, I can get back to talking about the actual story and get into the most exciting part of Beatrice's character arc so far. The climax of Beatrice's character arc begins in Episode 9 of Season 2, Part 2, where Subaru travels to the library to ask Beatrice to leave and begin a new life for herself.
今度こそお前は俺の手でお日様の下に引きずり出されてそのドレスを泥だらけにして真っ黒になるまで遊ぶんだ
Beatrice asks him if he is that person, but he says no, wanting her to make a decision for herself and not follow Echidna's guidance. Beatrice then kicks him out of the library before he can fully explain himself.
バカかお前俺がお前のその人なんてわけのわからないやつのわけねえだろ
Continuing into Episode 11, the mansion surrounding the Forbidden Library has been accidentally set on fire by Subaru as a result of other events.
あれ
Upon realizing that Beatrice was going to burn to death if she doesn't leave, Subaru tries to return to the library, risking his life in the process. Inside the library, Beatrice reflects on her past and her time with Subaru. She wants to leave, but if Subaru is not that person, then how can she? It would be breaking her promise. And so, she makes the decision to accept her incoming demise and follow the promise that her mother gave to her.
何がさよならだ誰がそんな風にお前を終わらせてやれるか
However, Subaru manages to get back into the library for a final time, where he gives an impassioned speech and convinces Beatrice to come with him and live for herself. This scene is interesting in many ways. It contains a lot of symbolism having to do with Beatrice's character arc and her promise to Echidna. First of all, Beatrice's promise has its physical legacy in both the Forbidden Library and her Book of Wisdom just as much as it leaves its mental legacy in her mind. The fact that Subaru is the one to destroy the Forbidden Library thus has symbolic value, showing Subaru's influence on Beatrice's decision. On the other hand, if the Forbidden Library's destruction is representative of Subaru's impact on Beatrice, the Book of Wisdom is representative of Beatrice's own decision, as she drops it while lunging forward to grab his hand. Therefore, this climactic scene has significance beyond its already great emotional value. Beatrice's characterization is very profound. Her character has a lot to say about people in real life. It is ironic, really, that an artificial spirit has more in common with many real people than other human characters do. Her story of a traumatizing upbringing that led into seemingly endless years of loneliness, alongside people that only wanted to take advantage of her, sounds very familiar, and so does her eventual decision to give up on life. But what she didn't realize was that by the time she chose death, there were many people that truly cared about her and wanted her to live. This blindness is often shared by many people who are depressed or suicidal. They think that they are not important beyond an assigned role, or that they have no importance at all. Beatrice thought she was unimportant beyond her promise to Echidna. But fortunately for her, she had someone that showed her that he cared enough to risk his life to save her.
永遠って時間の中でもセピア色にならないぐらい鮮烈な男だったんだってことを。
In an even broader sense, Beatrice is not only characteristic of depressed people, she also exemplifies people as a whole, embodying the idea that we all need to be saved. Just as Beatrice faced an eternal contract that amounted to imprisonment in the library, we also face an eternity in a place that is far past the point of burning down. And just as Beatrice looked to her blank, unyielding book of wisdom and her dead mother for help that was never coming, we often look toward the wrong things to guide us. Beatrice found her savior in the form of someone she definitely was not expecting, and so it is the same for us. In the end, Beatrice decided to choose Subaru and live, just like it is up to us to choose the one who will save us. Beatrice shows us the ultimate human condition, the fact that we need the savior. And that, everyone, is the genius of her character.
俺を選べベアトリス。誰かに外に連れ出してほしいから。お前はいつも扉の前に座ってたんじゃないのか。
もうどうなっても知らないのよ。
ああ、どうにかしてやろうぜ。俺とお前で。